Morning, guys. What's up? Welcome to the F5 Report. As always, if you find value in these videos, all we ask you to do is share them with your friends. Make sure you subscribe. And every morning at 8 a.m., we will go live here at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, interview some of the top rockstar operators around the country, talk about what's happening during this corona outbreak and the self-quarantine epidemic that we're all dealing with right now, and figure out what's working, what's not working, and how we can get to the next level. Today, we have our friend Ian Walsh from Hard Money Bankers. Welcome to the show, Ian. What's up, man?
What's happening, Joe?
I'm excited to talk to you, man. We always do fun interviews together, so I think this should be interesting.
Sounds good. Yeah, I'm excited too.
So Ian, just to start out, tell us a little bit about how is Hard Money Bankers affected and what's changed. I know it's probably pretty massive, right? But what has changed? What are you doing better? What are you doing differently than you were 6 weeks ago? And where are you guys at?
Yeah, I mean, so different than 6 weeks ago is really, so all of our competition kind of got, knocked out of the market. It was like, honestly, it was like 3 days, because what happened was in our world, and Joe, you probably, you do a lot of transactions. So you're familiar with like private money and so forth. You probably noticed that when you're like, wait a minute, what? These guys are out of business. Mm-hmm. So what happened was, Wall Street was funding a lot of back end companies that were my quote unquote competitors, right? And it was very tempting in our business to be like, hey, because Wall Street comes in and they go, hey, here's, you have $5 million to lend. We'll leverage you by 10. Now here's 50 million. Go out and get them. And you're like, wow, like I can 10x my, 10x my business overnight. And, over the last 10 years, it was very tempting because Wall Street realized that when they have like 0% interest, money that they're getting access to, that all of a sudden they're in a position where a 10% spread looks really sexy and it's really attractive, and that's better than they can get in bonds or whatever stock. So a lot of them crept into our world due to the low interest rates, and then they put the apple on the tree for our competitors to take. And I'm not gonna lie, like over the years, the way we raise capital, the way we have capital is, we're paying our investors a hell of a lot more than the 2%. Mm-hmm. So it was, always tempting to be like, damn, we could take 3% money, 2% money. But we knew if you let them into the dungeon with us, that it was going to be a scenario where they're running your business. Yeah. And what that means is what just happened in the last 6 weeks, where as soon as they get spooked, Wall Street, that might deploy like $1 billion, whatever, a month into this industry. That's nothing compared to what they have. So they just grab that money and say, we're done. And they run your business on the back end. And that's what happened overnight. Bang, the bank's lending criteria has changed. We're pulling lines from everybody. And I mean, I thought when this time came that competitors would be like maybe a slow dwindling or something like that. I didn't think it was going to be a light switch.
It's unbelievable. I mean, we were getting unsolicited emails from lenders we haven't used in years, just like sending us emails saying, hey, by the way, don't even bother applying because we're not doing that anymore. It's like, well, we didn't even ask you for it, but it's crazy. Like almost instantaneously, people were just gone. And really it affected us the most in our wholesale business, right? Because we're selling people, to cash buyers all the time. They're backed by hard money or private money. So you had all these buyers who are still ready to go and they're buying at great numbers, but they're being told by their hard money banker or hard money lender that, we're not doing that type of loan anymore, or the restrictions and terms are so much different that it ends up negating the deal altogether.
That's 100% right. And yeah, I mean, they're just telling everybody. I saw one guy come out yesterday that was kind of a Wall Street lender. He said, we're reopening our doors on May 8th. But, the way it is now is like these guys, not only did they realize their vulnerability that they couldn't stay open for more than a week, but like they're in a position too where like their clients are going to have to trust what they're telling them, because are you opening the doors to like, do you actually have money? Like, what are you saying? So like when they reopen, there's a whole region, gearing up period that they're going to have to go through to gain trust and loyalty back. So I like to say, we were built for this because we were from 2008, that we saw all the old school lenders, like how they built, why they didn't take bank money over the years. And we're like, all right, let's do it like this. And so it was the slow, hard road for a 10-year run. Like it's hard to raise that, it's easy to raise a couple $1 million. It's hard to raise like 50, 60, 100 million bucks, not bank money. That's a difficult thing to do. So it's very tempting along the way, but we just kind of stayed true to it. And now when this hit, I am getting calls from everyone, like all day long. Today I'll have 100 calls from, hey, are you guys still lending? Are you still lending? Are you still lending? It's just all day.
Well, answer that question for the folks. So are you still lending? Have things changed? Have the criteria changed?
I have not. So I've always been so I'm not subject to like, hey, it has to be 580, 620, 680 credit score. Like I don't really care about that. So my lending has not changed in the way I'm deploying. I'm deploying exact same amount of money, exact same ways I've been doing, no appraisals, that kind of stuff. Like 24-hour closings still happening. I have one closing tomorrow based on that. What I am doing though, like if you want to talk about a change, is like and everybody should be doing this. I'm hedging for when we get to see the real life comps come in on pre-virus money.
Yeah.
Right? Like our pre-virus comps, right? We just don't have that data yet. So I'm hedging my bet in terms of like, if if the markets have been pushing in comps like 320, 330, 340 pre-virus, if I have a good executor like yourself and I'm like, yeah, this guy's going to get top of the market. But right now, like top of the market at 340 probably is going to be, hedging, saying maybe like 300 is a much cleaner number right now. I don't know where that's going to settle. We'll know. And I think you might even mentioned it on the show. I don't have done so many of these shows, but like June, July, are where the real comps come back. So I'm hedging a little, but I'm definitely lending. If the numbers still work, they still work.
Yeah, and I think I think it's frankly a matter of how quick everybody gets back. What happens if there's a second bump? The whole thing. Like, look, if we all go back to work in 2 weeks, this might not have affected anything. But I don't see that being realistic. And also, again, I think the second hit is going to be all these small businesses that unfortunately just could not survive 2 months with relatively little income, if not no income. They're going to start to affect the market because that changes things drastically. When you have your, standard between 200 and 400K house, let's say, for example, that's being owned by that small business owner, they're going to have trouble. They're going to have trouble finding, new loans to buy new houses. And they're also going to be able, not be in that market buying actively anymore, right? Because they're trying to survive.
It's all connected, right? So and we don't know where that chain is going to break. And I think I had mentioned it maybe when we were chatting, but like there's things that we can't see yet. And we don't know where that domino effect is going to occur economically. Like some of it might be like, oh, everybody's like, this is going to happen, right? Nobody knows. It's all speculation right now. So, well, this might logically seem what it is, but you might be like I said, I think I was talking about where I saw in like China where like, they had a supply chain shutdown with food, right? So, well, you're like, well, what does that mean? Like, can they just remake food? Well, it's like, well, I think it was like something like 50 million grains, per quarter gets stocked. And then all of a sudden they had no production for a quarter. So then you're like a 25% food shortage. Like these things you don't think of are going to show their head like after this is over. Yeah. And you're exactly right. Like the logic of what you just said is like, business is shut down, not going to be buying, smaller buyer pool. Then you're going to have, your minimum credit score is going to be 680. So guys, at 620, when there might have been a whole lot of people aren't going to be strong buyers anymore. So then does that increase inventory? I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, does that increase inventory? What's happening to the inventory right now? Is stuff, you hear there's an inventory shortage, which is kind of like a great way to spin that data point, right? Because people don't want other people in their house, and so they're taking them off the market and they're not listing them anymore, which would indicate a shortage in inventory, right? But what happens the day that they lift the ban and people start, needing to sell their house again, are going to want to make access happen? All of a sudden, it's going to be, inventory goes straight up overnight. So, I think you're right. There's no crystal ball. There's nobody knows exactly. And the thing is, we're living through history. We're all going to look back on this thing in 5 years and say, remember Corona? Remember what happened back then when people got leaner, people got tighter, they started to work differently. I think that there's also a boom in virtualization of businesses that's going to happen over this thing, because there are people who are doing it, are getting by, in fact, are thriving in this market. And it's because they were forced to do things in a more efficient way.
Yeah, I think the changes that we'll see. So personally, I love it because I mean, most of my day is from home. I'm a bit of an introvert, honestly. So I enjoy being in front of my computer all day. That's just how I work best. So like, I've always been telling people, I'm like, I've been in quarantine for 10 years, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm okay with that. So, but like, I like the changes that'll accommodate that. And I can say that from just working that way in general for a decade, that like, I've had to make a lot of changes virtually anyway to be like, oh, this can be done virtually. This can be done virtually. It's going to be great. In my opinion, I'm going to enjoy it in terms of like, everybody's going to be doing meetings like this, like hop on a Zoom, basically, whatever it's going to be. I think Zoom is just the start of it. You're going to see like you have a virtual wholesale. I mean, you have a wholesaling business you do across the country, right?
Yeah, so the interesting thing was we were, I would say 80% virtual, and then we were forced to go to 100% virtual, meaning we wholesale virtually on our own backyard. So my team's doing deals from 3-4 miles away without ever stepping foot on the property. But what we were doing was we had people in an office, we had call center, we had live teams coming in every day, and I had all my processors and all that. What we had to do literally on a drop of a hat was spin everything to virtual, go Zoom calls, go, live interactive videos, do live trainings online, join me and all that kind of stuff. Right. And so, this adversity, they say the adversity is what it takes to hit the reset button, to start doing the things that you probably should have been doing all along. Here we are, we're running a team and we're doing it completely online. And it's like, man, why did we ever bother wasting that hour and a half each way, getting people to commute in and get warmed up in the morning and get their coffee and do their training, and then they're on the phones by 10. Now it's like, we do our 9:15 huddle call, and then boom, they're right on the phones right away, and they're active and they're engaged, and they're actually more excited because there's less of that stress of, is my car going to make it to work? Am I going to get a flat tire? Do I have to sit in traffic? The stress, all that kind of stuff. Now it's just like, boom, get up, get dressed, get ready, and get right to work. So I think it's actually become more efficient for us, which that's hard to say. I mean, that's hard to imagine, because we were pretty effective before,
Yeah, and I think it's true. Like I think in my head, so I'm very like, I don't know if it just runs in my family or what, but my brother's the same way. We're extremely efficient. Borderline, people are going to call us lazy. And I'll look at something like, like that car situation. If I was doing that every day, I'm like, this is like 35 minutes of driving. Yeah. I'm like, this sucks. I was like, and I wouldn't be like, this sucks because of traffic or anything else. I'd be like, this is such a lack of productivity. Like, why am I doing this? This isn't making me money. Like, what am I doing? Right. I'd be getting frustrated. So hopefully that was 35 minutes across, or 30 minutes of drive time across the nation, adds 30 minutes of work. I mean, I don't know how that would work out from like a GDP standpoint, but that's 30 minutes a day, and I think you're exactly right with what you said in terms of, the forced to do this, because this in my comparison, if I were to give an analogy, would be like, look, if you're getting fat and you're like, I'm going to lose weight. Well, I know I have to run. I'm going to run. Bang, you have a heart attack. All right. Game changer, right? This is the heart attack. And now it's like you are either losing weight and changing, or you're going to not adapt and die. Right. So like, this was like the heart attack on the economy to lose that weight, I think is where we are right now. And it's like everything we were thinking about doing, we're doing right now. Yeah, no, it's a reset switch. And and the funny thing is that adversity forces us to do things that for a lot of people, we should have been doing it already. Like that heart attack, right? Like you should have been running all along. You should have been doing cardio all along. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, I got to do cardio. Well, it's a slap in the face, but it's also a realization, I think, for a lot of business owners. Look, we're not taking away anything from the business owners who are just absolutely struggling to survive and can't figure out how to do it in this weird place that we're in right now. But for some business owners, they needed a little bit of this as an awakening, right? To change things. Yeah, I look at like when I look at other business owners, and that's true too. Like I'm not knocking, like some guys have it harder than others. Like I look at for this cycle, and you and I were fortunate in the industry we're in. Like I didn't plan this 10 years in advance to say this is the industry that will particularly survive. I had no idea how this was going to shake out. I could have been built, just like one of my competitors that took the bank money and said, holy cow, I'm out of a job overnight. So some people for sure have it tougher. You and I have been fortunate in the types of businesses we're in that right now we're not, it's okay. It's fine. But, I look at this too, though, and say like, top performers, a lot of the guys that we've had like on our show and stuff, like, Mike McCann and these guys, like, it doesn't really matter how hard they get knocked down. It won't matter. Like, even if they were in the unluckiest scenario, the unluckiest moment, those guys like don't go away. They don't roll over and die. These guys might be like, look, like, yeah, it was a tough licking like during that time. But then in 5 years from now, you're like, how did you come back to the top of the market? It's like these guys, it's in the person. Yeah, right? It doesn't take them out of the business. Like, however hard that moment is, they have incredible endurance, incredible, their skin is really thick. And no matter how hard you hit them, those guys get up. The ones that I think we'll see over the next 5 years that don't are the ones that disappear right now and don't come back. They had thin skin to begin with. They really, they were riding that appreciation wave of the last 10 years. And they didn't know what they didn't know. And I say, like, I was saying this, like, probably like a year ago or so. I'm like, man, there's a lot of people out here that shouldn't have money right now that do, and meaning that they were too dumb to have the money they had. And that was the shitty way to say it. But
yeah,
the reality is that was floating around, a lot of it.
I think that's an effective way to say it, truthfully, because let's think about this. Let's just talk about our industry for a second, which I think is so interesting, right? You have a lot of these gurus that act like Nostradamus for the last 3 or 4 years, that the economy is going to crash in 18. Oh, 19's the year. Oh, 2020 is definitely the year, right? And that the economy is cyclical. It's going to go up and down. All this did was accelerate the down curve. We knew that the market was going to come down. Why do you think that there were people out there that were acting like they were a kid in a candy store and just continuing to do everything that they saw as an opportunity, instead of saying, okay, I'm going to start to figure out how to be able to operate when everything's not perfect, when everything's not in alignment? That challenge, that to me was what always was interesting, right? You got people telling you for years, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. If you got caught holding a huge bag in this particular market, I don't really know that you have anybody else to blame but yourself.
You were blinded by, you're blinded by, so I do a lot of people don't know this about me, but I do a lot in the stock market. And I'm always technical analysis is like my method of movement. And so I'm always looking at like cycles and stuff. And George always like busts my balls about that, like, cause I'm always talking about it, but it's so cyclical in the way that like, so there's a blinding phase in they call it like capitulation is what like the term is. So that blinding phase is what I think we were in the last 3 years. And it's just this like, a market. And don't get me wrong, I love being on the right side of a market. When you're on the right side of a market, it makes you think you're smarter than you are. And that kid in the candy store feeling is blinding. And that, like, if you've been through a cycle or two before, you go, like if you talk to the old heads that were in the last 2008 one, they saw the guys that did see it coming, they're like, I know everybody else is making so much money right now, but this is crazy. Like, this is nuts. This shouldn't be happening like this. And those are the guys, like you said, like it was their responsibility at that moment to be like, it looks like I could triple my money right now. And they're like, you know what, I'm out. And they just sell or they stop. I have in South Jersey, Dave Alzada, right? You're familiar with Dave, I'm sure. And Dave, he's a great dude. Yeah, great guy. He pulled back heavily on his flipping for the last 3 years. And you're like, that sounds crazy, right? 6 weeks ago, that sounded crazy. But Dave's like, nah, man. He's like, I'm pulling back right now. He's like, if I don't have that deal drop in my lap, and he's waiting back. He's like, I made so much money in 2009, 2010. He's like, that needs to set back up. And now Dave doesn't look so crazy, Well,
for years now, I mean, look, we've been steadily doing less and less and less flips, but I found myself, and every flipper that does high volume, by the way, whether they admit this or not, if they don't admit it, they're full of shit, but they have bad deals. Like, you're going to have 1 in 10. It's just not a great deal, And so, 3 years ago when we had this high volume, I said to myself, this is crazy. We have to get rid of these tight deals because when the market shifts 10%, you're going to be pinched, right? So, starting to unload that inventory and only cherry pick, the best deals that we could find, I think was part of the reason that we were successful through this thing, and doing the right deals, not every deal, right? And I think that can be done today and still be done effectively.
Man, that is like doing the right deals, not every deal. I know it's so hard. I think there's a sweet spot for investors. I see it all the time with like all the, I get so many different kinds of people calling me for money that I see the guys that are scaling and they get into that, like, got to do a deal. Yeah. And in the end, like, I was always more expensive price wise than my competitors. Like, we were just like, we're not playing the price wars. Either the deal's right and the margins are right, or we're out. Yeah. And I think what you noticed was like it's the same amount of effort for less money. I'm not in that game. I'm in the game of like, cherry pick. And I think that like, that is a huge lesson for anybody that is in that, like, hey, I'm doing 20, 30 flips a year and they're trying to get to 50, trying to get to 60 and the margins are shrinking or whatever. It's like, dude, all you're doing is building yourself a harder headache to back out of. Right.
Man, it hit us hard when I realized, like, your dentist is flipping houses. You're the manager of the tire store is flipping houses. You're like, whoa, what's going on right now? Like, this doesn't, like, why everyone all of a sudden is a real estate investor overnight, right? And I think that when you look around and you see that, you got to scratch your head and say, okay, what's going on with this? Either it's so easy that everybody should be doing it, and I know that's not the truth because it's a pain in the ass, right? Or something's up. people shouldn't be buying these houses that are buying the houses and doing these things. So, I think that's interesting. Tell me about the guys that are doing deals right now. Are they getting, what kind of terms are they looking at right now? What kind of, deals are you looking for particularly? Are you in the single family? Are you in the multifamily? Are you doing development stuff? Is it all fix and flip?
I don't really do much new construction. I've never had an appetite for it unless it's like cross collateralized with like standing property. It's really dangerous in moments like this in the market. So I do a lot of like fix and flips, buy and holds. We certainly do larger commercial as well. They just don't come like, our money is 13 or 14% interest. So when you're doing like a $2 million deal, you got to have a really good reason to be in like, that's very expensive money.
Sure.
I don't know that we're ever going to see again that crazy low Wall Street money that just crept in. You might see another pop of it, but that like 8-1, 9-1 money, if you still have access somewhere in this world to that kind of money, take as much of it as you can. I think you're going to see the traditional lending numbers come back up. That 12 to 16% range is going to be very common. It was a unique time in the history of our industry that Wall Street money met what was going on. As far as like our like clients that come in, they're still definitely buying. Everybody's still buying because I think there's like this unknown factor. Like everybody's like, all right, it makes sense that the coronavirus should end and the economy should pop back up. So everybody's kind of in that thought. I also know in the back of all of our minds, there's an uneasiness of like, well, what could happen next or what's next? So what are the comps? So there's like, I think everybody's hedging a bit. Nobody wants to miss the bottom, right? We're not there. We're definitely not. There's a lot of people that don't know, but one thing I can tell you is this was not a bottom. The prices have not shifted enough. So there's kind of like, I don't want to miss the next deal. I'm trying to get the deal, feeling I see, but honestly, like it's really hard for me to gauge because I have so many like calls from ex-competitors now coming over. So like if they were all still in business, I don't know what deal flow would look like actually. I'm not really sure. It's just deal flow came from somewhere else, which happens in businesses, right? It shifts, but the market's still moving. The market is very much still moving from the retail realtor end. Obviously, it's slowing down for like 90 days, but from the investment perspective, like they could set a closing for 60 days out, and like you didn't even know the virus existed during that time. So. But the investment market is still very much moving. I'm sure you're still doing a bunch of wholesale deals across the country.
We are. Yeah. And actually that just, you brought up a good point I wanted to touch on, which I've been saying this for weeks. Like there's never been better talent on the bench than there is today. Right. And that's the truth in, people you want to hire for your team, salespeople, but also, the opportunity you just brought up, like joint venturing opportunities. Like, so if another hard money banker lender comes in, isn't doing it anymore, I'm sure you're finding ways to help put those deals together, facilitate a joint venture, do whatever, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I have, and I'm friendly. Like I'm what is it? Abundance mindset or whatever the hell it's called. Versus So I'm friendly with all my lenders. Like if they have a problem with me, I definitely didn't have a problem with them. It's that they're jealous of something with me. Cause like, so I'm friendly with them. So, and I feel bad. Like I get it. Dude. Like I could have been on just as easily on the other side of this. And, so I've had guys that send me, deals and stuff. And I'm like, look, if you need anything, let me know. I'll figure it out. I'll help you out, whatever it is. So I don't like to see anybody falter. If you're worried about my deals, then you have a bigger problem, right? What's the Tiger Woods? Or they would say Tiger Woods says. I don't think it was Tiger Woods. Yeah. But, winners are worried about winning. Losers are worried about winners, right? Like
100% true. When you're a problem solver, I think that's why you can survive this thing. If you can solve problems effectively, people are going to find ways to bring you stuff. We have other wholesalers, other investors reaching out to us, can't get their deals closed, stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, the more creative you are, the more resources you are. And I like that piece that you said, you're friendly, right? Like, guys, I think, I don't care what industry you're in, people look at competition and they're like, oh, I don't, it's like, I think you get more out of being friendly with your competition, talking to them about business, creating opportunity. I mean, we're on the phone all the time with other wholesalers and other investors trying to find ways to help them do deals so that we both win, right? I think that's what solution providers do.
Yeah, if you're thinking about me and my business, you have a bigger problem that you're not addressing internally. You should have plenty of business internally I shouldn't even be on your radar. Yeah. That's how, and I say that like, that's an easy, I was that guy when I was building like our property management company. Like I all these property management companies were on my radar. Oh, this guy, that guy, this guy. And then I don't know what happened at some point in my career, but like I think it was after the sale to TCS and so forth, I just all of a sudden realized I wasn't thinking about anybody else because we were so far ahead of the game.
Yeah.
I didn't even like their names didn't come up. And then I realized like some people were saying crappy things about me. I'm like, you don't even know me, like, how do you know like about me in this business? And I'm like, oh, they're creating this facade of like me affecting their business when I have nothing to do with it, but I was just doing the same thing. So I had to have like my own like shift mentally. And then I realized, oh, that was me thinking like a loser for like 5 years. That's what that was. And
yeah, it's true. It's true. It's Evans calls it king of the dipshits, right? Like following what everybody else is doing, paying attention to what, like concentrate on your own shit. And all of a sudden your competition almost doesn't exist anymore. It's crazy.
It doesn't. It goes away in your brain. Yeah.
So, I want to be respectful of your time. That's been we've been almost a half an hour so far. Any last things I didn't talk about? I didn't ask you, or that you want to add before we go?
No, I just honestly, I think anybody out there that's having a tough moment, and I'm not here to mansplain the advice of what you're going through, trying to put myself in your shoes or somebody else's shoes. I just think that I have found that if I take a deep breath during these times and I've been through some really tough times in my life in business, that I've just realized that no matter how monumental, how enormous the moment feels, if you have the grit and the ability, the endurance, you'll be fine. Like you'll be cool no matter what you're doing, what business you're in. So people will pull through this. It'll be bumpy, but people will definitely pull through this. And if you had a successful business before, you'll find a way to get another one.
It's an awesome way to end. Take a deep breath, reevaluate, see where you stand. And this is just a bump in the road along the way. So, Ian Walsh, I appreciate you being on, brother. Look at that. Love that hat. That's a classic.
Every day. I wear it every day.
There's only like 10 of those hats in the world, and you have one.
It's collective.
I don't know how it worked out, but that's awesome. Yeah. Awesome, brother. Well, I appreciate you being on today, and we look forward to speaking with you again shortly. Maybe we'll have you on again.
All right, Joe. See you guys.
All right.